Are you looking to get pretty nerdy with your coffee grinding? Or are you looking for a really great grinder for on-the-go grinding that also has a really cool design? I've got one to show you today here on FrenchPressCoffee.com. Hi everyone, I'm Brian with FrenchPressCoffee.com. Thank you as always for tuning in. We really appreciate you guys out there in TV land. As I said in my intro, if you're looking for a grinder that's going to allow you to get a little nerdy about your grind, has a cool design, and is going to be really great for on the go, I've got one for you today, and it is the Orphan Espresso Fixie Travel Coffee Grinder. Now I did an unboxing of this one, and it definitely impressed me right out of the box, but I didn't get to spend time grinding with it, and so we spent some time in the studio getting to know it and its usage. I'm going to show you how it works today. Let's dive in. Firstly, I have the Fixie broken down in front of me here. I've field stripped it a little bit, and what you're going to notice immediately is that it's got something that I haven't seen on many grinders or even on a lot of coffee accessories, and that's this carbon fiber finish. So it's got a carbon fiber finish and anodized aluminum fittings. It looks really just slick and very die cut. It reminds me of a bike, and that's probably partially because its name is Fixie, and I think of fixed gear bicycles, but it kind of reminds me of a bike. Even the handle for grinding almost feels like it would go on a bike. So it's just very smooth looking. I can tell you it feels really good in the hand. The catch jar is titanium, and I was saying this in my unboxing video, it just feels crazy to hold. It's like it's sticking to your fingers. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere, and it just feels really cool. So putting it together is really simple. The Fixie has this very robust silicone seal system here where the catch jar goes, and you just pop that on to the catch jar. And then we've got our handle, and I'm going to go over one of the really unique things about the Fixie, and that is going to be how it is that you adjust your grind size. Now, a lot of grinders that I've talked about, especially hand grinders here on FrenchPressCoffee.com, you make that adjustment for the grind size on the burrs themselves. There's usually some kind of apparatus that you twist, turn, something like that, but the Fixie is very different. With the Fixie, I'm going to unscrew this top nut right here. And then I'll take off all of these discs. I'm just going to let these guys fall off. There's a lot of different little parts here, and we'll just talk about these real quick. Now, it's important to note that when you take it apart, you need to hold the burr up, because if you don't, the burr is going to fall out. So hold the burr up. It's not very hard to get back in, but it's just easier if you put your hand there and then pull those discs out. So I'll set it down, and that'll stay in place. And before I launch fully into that, I'm just going to point everyone to the manual that comes with the Fixie. And if you have this at home and you're following along, you can take a look at that manual, because this will walk you through the basic idea of how the Fixie works. Now, the tuner shims are these white shims right here. And these come in two 20 micron measurements and two 10 micron measurements. So that allows you to get, like I was saying, nerdy about your grind. And then you're going to have those Fixie discs, and I was mentioning those earlier. The Fixie discs, there's 3 of them, and they have little holes cut through them. I'll put them as 1, 2, and 3 here. So starting with my right hand, coarse is the 3-hole, medium is the 2-hole, and then we've got 1 hole, which is for fine. And so these are going to allow you to adjust your grind overall. The other thing I should mention is that the Fixie is very light, comes in at only about 330 grams, so it's not very heavy. It's going to stand at 196 millimeters tall and 54 millimeters in its max diameter, and it holds 30 grams of coffee. So you can grind about enough coffee for about 16 to 20 ounces of coffee, liquid coffee. It would all depend, of course, on how strong you want your coffee to be and what kind of coffee you might happen to be grinding as well. There are always different factors. But all of that said, let's just talk about how to grind with the Fixie, because it is slightly involved, but once you know how it works, I think you'll probably feel comfortable with it. We're going to start off, and let's just go ahead and grind with our finest grind. So to do that, we would select the fine disc. Now again, the fine disc has a single hole in the top of it. I'm going to take that disc and just simply place it right here on the stem of the burr. And again, I've got the unit sitting on my table right now. I could either hold it with my hand or let it sit. One way or the other, you need to hold that burr up. Make sure you hold it up because otherwise it's going to fall out. Now, I will take my drive disc with the handle and I'll place it on. And it's going to stay locked in place because this is sort of keyed. You're going to notice that the top of my burr's stem right here matches up with the drive disc. So it's not going to go anywhere, but to make sure it's really not going to go anywhere, we'll just put that top nut on. Screw it down, finger tight, doesn't need to be too tight. You want to be able to take it apart later on. Now I will also say that the drive disc feels really solid. Again, it's got that carbon fiber on the stem of it right here, that anodized aluminum disc that locks it down, and then the handle is rubberized and it all feels really smooth. And before I even put any coffee in it, I'll just say it feels very clean. All right, so with that said, if I wanted to adjust this grind to be even more fine, then I would make use of my tuner shims. My tuner shims would go just above my top nut, on top of my disc, which I have chosen. So we're going to just pop this off real quick, and I'll show it to you, but again, I'm going to grind with just normal fine grind. So I would place those there, put my handle on top, and then lock it down. That will allow you to adjust the fineness of your grind. So you can really adjust this. Again, you can do so in microns. And we've played with it, and we have seen a big difference if you make that adjustment, such as putting the two 20 micron discs on. That does cause for your grind to get a lot more fine. But we're just going to grind with the one right now. So what this has done is it just decreases the amount of distance that the burrs have in their opening right here from where they meet with the body of the hopper where I'm going to be placing my beans. So that's important. Less space is going to mean that I'm going to be grinding my beans more fine. So now, and this is something we picked up on here, it's kind of important that for filling up the unit, you make use of the actual catch jar. And the reason is I did try to fill the unit using just a standard measuring spoon, and it was just a little hard to do. I had to really kind of place and then plan and get it there. Whereas I will say that if I fill the catch jar up, and we're just going to do about 2.5 scoops right here of this awesome Red Rock Roasters limited edition El Salvador blend that I've got right here. This is pretty excellent. I'm going to be careful with it because, as they told me in the studio, use it wisely, Brian, so I will. All right, so I did notice, as I say, that if I was using the spoon, it was a little harder to fill the unit, whereas if I'm using the catch jar and I just kind of lay it flat and then plan it out, I don't get beans everywhere. Whereas when I was using the spoon, for some reason or another, I just couldn't get it to land right. I got beans everywhere. It's a small thing, but when you're going to be using something every day, you want to figure out the best and easiest way to be able to use it, because let's face it, you want to enjoy your coffee. So then inside of this little handy holder right here, which is where I could hold all of my discs if I wanted, I'll put those aside, I have this rubber cap. And this rubber cap pops right on and over the hole in the hopper. All right, so that should keep all my beans in. Cool, they're not going to go anywhere. So now I'm ready to grind. So I know that was a lot of setup initially, but once you find the right grind for your Fixie, I don't think you're going to have as many steps, because you're not going to have to be putting things together and everything, unless you have people come over and everyone wants a different grind of coffee, in which case my luck goes out to you. All right, so let's grind. Now I'm going to say this, I've used a lot of hand grinders, and they're usually very fatiguing. This one feels pretty smooth. Doesn't feel like I'm going to get worn out very quickly. And remember, I'm grinding fine right now, so when you're grinding fine, that means it's going to take a lot more work. But this feels pretty smooth. Yeah, so that should be good enough. We can grind everything that's in there, but we don't necessarily have to. Okay, and I'm going to show you what it is that we've ground here. Now, again, this can all change depending on the coffee that you're using, how much moisture might be in that coffee, what level of roast it is, and etc. But let's just look at what we've got here. And again, this is fine. That's pretty good. I mean, that is quite fine. I think I could definitely use this really easily for an Aeropress. And I really love brewing with the Aeropress. I think that this might be still just ever so slightly too coarse for doing an espresso or a mocha pot, you know, something along those lines, doing something that is strictly espresso. You would probably want to adjust a little bit by using some of those adjustment discs in order to get it to be even more fine. That, of course, is going to lead to more grinding, but you're going to get a much more powdery grind at that point, and you know that allows you to dial in depending on, again, what it is that you might be brewing with. If you're using a mocha pot or something else that is strictly very much espresso, then of course you want to get this more fine. But overall, I am impressed. Now, we did do a lot of different grinds here in the studio to just kind of learn more about the Fixie and how it was going to grind. And when grinding with the coarsest grind, we got something that would be probably pretty fitting for French press. But in playing around with it, I will say this, we did see a lot of some breakage, and there was sort of a varying level in the grind when we were playing around with it a little bit. We did get some nice coarse boulders, as you might call it, but we did also get a lot of very fine coffee, and as we kind of went through that and got, again, kind of nerdy about it, we found a lot of different levels on the grind. So that kind of means that this might only really apply for certain types of coffee for you. But of course, it all depends on what it is that you're looking to drink. So what's my bottom line with the Orphan Espresso Fixie travel grinder? It's definitely very unique. I've talked about a lot of different travel and hand grinders here on the channel, and this one, I'd say it takes the cake overall on design, and its overall slick design is really very cool. I think that it's going to be really good for those that are traveling and really good for doing Aeropress or more single cup type of applications. For doing something like French press, where you do need a lot more coffee, I think it might be a little much. Well, actually, it just might be hard. That's all. You're going to have to grind a lot of coffee. If you did need to grind a lot of coffee for a French press, I would probably say to go with something like one of these Lido grinders, which we've talked about before. This is very large, and this will make grinding a lot of coffee by hand a lot more easily. And if you're going to be making French press, let's just face it, you're going to need more coffee. But for a single cup application, I think this is going to be a really excellent way to go. And one thing I should mention, do not lose these discs. Like, do not lose these things, because without this, you are just not going to be able to adjust your grind. You're going to be stuck with whatever was on there, and if you lose them all, then you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. But remember, if you do find the grind that you like by using these discs, you probably won't necessarily have to use them too frequently. Just keep them stored aside, find the grind that you like, and you'll be able to use that at all times. That's going to make grinding a lot more quick and easy. So there you have it, everyone. That is my review for the day of the Orphan Espresso Fixie Travel Coffee Grinder. As always, I'm Brian with FrenchPressCoffee.com. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
Well, if you liked that highly caffeinated video, why don't you go ahead and give us a like and subscribe to our channel. The button is right there. I'll go ahead and wait. And if you do, I'll give you a nice coffee quote. Go on. Awesome. Thank you so much. And now here's your coffee quote. Everybody should believe in something. I believe I'll have another coffee.